35 years ago, demonic beings emerged from the Dark Continent, an event humanity came to call the peaceful extinction. As powerful monsters unleashed devastating attacks like the Flame Lance, prompting humanity to unite and research a new power called magic. But even this newly developed magic proved ineffective against them, serving as nothing more than a temporary delay against the onslaught. So humanity sought greater power by turning to natural phenomena, leading to the discovery of spirits in the year 935, which allowed certain individuals to make contracts and become revered heroes, wielding spirit magic far superior to any conventional spells, with the strongest being the five emperors, wielders of imperial-class spirits. The story shifts to a peaceful village in the present day, focusing on a certain young boy in a patterned vest, a child who was once hailed as a magical prodigy. Meanwhile, bullies attack a young girl with weak fireballs, mocking her for her inability to use even basic magic. The girl cries out in pain, begging them to stop. When suddenly someone and the girl looks up to see her defender standing before her, who scolds the bullies for their cruelty as they call him Faye. The bully's friend recalls Faye's title, the Ayur. At that, the lead bully, Bram, glares with pure rage, gritting his teeth in silent frustration, which sparks a memory of Faye easily showing magic to a girl named Ellis. While Bram could only watch them from afar, his eyes filled with burning jealousy. Even another girl, Cecilia, had teased him about his envy, prompting Bram to loudly declare he was far superior to Faye, but Faye had effortlessly sent him flying with a single spell. Back in the present, the rescued girl tearfully thanks Faye. He kindly offers a hand to help her up. As onlookers watch the tender moment, Faye then gives her a piggyback ride, a gentle smile on his face. His status as the son of the ducal Ponette family was well known, and villagers consistently praised him as a prodigy to his parents. His mother stands beside him, filled with immense pride, certain he's destined to become an unparalleled spirit master. Soon after, the family arrives at their grand ducal estate, greeted by a line of maids welcoming them home. As they walk down the lavish and ornate main hall, inside framed portraits hang on the wall, including a cherished picture of a younger, smiling Faye. Later, his parents discuss his upcoming 7th birthday and the approaching ritual. Faye then nervously asks what happens if he fails the contract, to which his father just raises an eyebrow. At 7 years old, children must go to a church for their spirit contract, a ceremony that determines their entire future. Failure is seen as hopeless. This immense pressure makes Faye's face pale with dread. On the fated day, the sun shines brightly over the mansion. As villagers gather, excited for the prodigy's spirit contract ceremony, they all murmur, expecting to witness something incredible. Soon, the family arrives at the grand church, where a priest greets them at the entrance. He leads them inside a hall filled with floating orbs of light. Faye stares in complete amazement at the spirits. His father points, explaining that these lights are the spirits themselves. The church's mana-rich environment attracts only the lowest-level spirits. Following tradition, the priest instructs Faye to send his mana toward the spirits. With a worried look, Faye hesitantly reaches out his hand. The glowing spirits continue to drift gently throughout the holy chamber. He pushes his mana toward a single glowing spirit. As his parents watch intently, eager to see the result, Faye closes his eyes, concentrating with all his might. He then loudly offers his mana in exchange for a contract and power. The onlookers outside murmur with growing anticipation. Suddenly, a tiny winged spirit responds to his call. A massive surge of light bursts forth from his hand. The crowd gasps, awed by the prodigy's incredible power. His parents exchange a look of surprised satisfaction. His father beams with pride, telling his son to show them everything. But just as quickly, the spirit recoils and darts away. Faye stares in utter disbelief, questioning what happened. The priest calmly suggests it was merely an attribute incompatibility. Frustrated, Faye tries again, but the next spirit also flees. From the gallery, onlookers note that he seems to be struggling. His entire family, including his younger siblings, watch stoically. The proud smiles on his parents' faces begin to falter. A wave of panic washes over Faye's face. His siblings, however, watch with smug amusement. The weight of everyone's expectations begins to crush the young boy. His father's proud smile curdles into a look of disdain, as one of his younger brothers glares with cold intensity. Suddenly, the light and hope in the room seem to fade. The brother gets Faye's attention with a sharp snap. Faye's face falls, consumed by shame and failure. In one last, desperate act, he unleashes his remaining mana. The spectators gasp at the incredible amount of power. Faye reaches out, his expression a mask of pure desperation. A blinding flash of light suddenly appears before him, His energy violently repels every spirit in the grand hall. They scatter in every direction, fleeing in absolute terror. The audience cries out, baffled that all the spirits ran away. Fike is left staring in utter soul-crushing shock. Whispers spread about the so-called prodigy's unbelievable failure. He feels the weight of his parents' immense disappointment. His father's face hardens, while his mother looks down. The boy flushes with shame, unable to look up. His world seems to fade away into a blank emptiness. Believing it's all over, he walks away completely alone. Rain begins to pour down on the family's large mansion. Faye sits alone on his bed, consumed by his sorrow, while outside a storm rages and his mother starts shouting. She calls Faye a disgrace, tears streaming down her face. His father laments that the family's renowned name is now tarnished. Nearby, his younger brother overhears their words with a slight smile. He enters Faye's room, greeting him with a taunting remark. Faye simply looks over, his expression remaining empty. The brother Bram grows annoyed at the lack of reaction. A flash of surprise crosses his face for a moment, before it warps into a cruel, self-satisfied smirk. With a dismissive wave, he calls Faye a failure. Faye's gaze hardens with a hint of newfound resolve. From that day forward, his family treats him like a stranger. Walking alone, he overhears people discussing his failed spirit contract. He turns to them with a polite smile, asking if something's wrong. The group panics, stammering that they're glad he's well. Faye acknowledges them quietly and continues on his way. They stare after him, completely dumbfounded by his calm demeanor. The group then whispers about his immense, unbelievable power. Meanwhile, Faye stands alone near a large tree, lost in thought. He takes a deep breath, concentrating intently. Suddenly, a powerful aura surges around him. He glances over at a girl exclaiming in amazement. But she admires another boy showing off his new spirit contract. A shadow falls across Faye's face, and his eyes widen in stunned realization. He stares in utter disbelief for a moment. Before composing his hands, he looks up at the sky, telling himself to focus. Just then, a maid approaches him in a corridor. She informs him his father has summoned him to the study. A wave of anxiety washes over him, but he agrees. He walks nervously down the long, empty hallway. Passing a wall adorned with family portraits, he stops abruptly, staring at the wall in shock. The portraits show various happy family members. Then his eye widens with a devastating truth. In a family photo, his own image has been violently scribbled out. He finally arrives at the slightly ajar door to the study. Inside, his entire family is waiting for him. Faye stares in wide-eyed horror at his family. His father coldly declares he is no longer a member of the family. Then he commands Faye to pack his belongings and leave immediately. The boy's eyes tremble with utter shock and disbelief. His siblings look on, one with a smug expression. Even his mother appears distraught, but remains completely silent. Afterward, he finds himself in a sunlit forest. Faye runs frantically, panting through the dense woods. He stops, tears streaming down his face as he curses his fate. Suddenly, memories of his family's praise flash through his mind. While running, his foot catches on a tree root. He tumbles forward, crashing onto the forest floor. Pushing himself up, he clenches his fists in the dirt. In front of him, a small glass marble lies in the grass. He stares at the orb, gasping as he recognizes it. A memory surfaces of his sisters giving it to him for his birthday. A fresh tear streaks down his cheek. He recalls his faint hope that someone would stop him from leaving. Now he clutches the small marble tightly in his palm. Lying on the ground, he looks up with tears of utter despair. As he lies there, Faye looks up in shock. He quickly sits up, alerted by a nearby sound. His eye widens as he senses a magical power. Suddenly, the nearby bushes begin to rustle. Two men step out from the foliage, smiling down at him. With dawning horror, he identifies them as members of the Branch family. One man reveals they are here on the family head's orders to kill him. Utter terror washes over the young boy's face. Without hesitation, the men launch a volley of fireballs. He desperately erects a water wall for protection. The fireballs sizzle out against his watery defense. Undeterred, his attackers then conjure a massive tornado. Fire magic quickly merges with the swirling wind. In disbelief, he identifies the spell as a fire tornado. One man smirks, impressed that Faye recognized the magic. Faye's expression hardens with grim determination. He remembers the common belief that magicians are far inferior to spirit users. A memory flashes of him being the natural heir to the Bonnet family. He now understands his father's greatest fear is losing his ducal status. Back in the present, the massive fire tornado rages towards him. Faye panics, believing his magic cannot block the massive spell. Instead, he crouches and casts Enchant Body on himself. He then sprints away with astonishing speed, surprising the men. His attackers smirk, finding his persistence amusing. With the fire tornado hot on his heels, he flees desperately. This magic enhances his physical abilities by channeling mana. However, the edge of the tornado grazes his back, sending him flying. Blood drips from the fresh wound as he stumbles. He forces himself up and continues to run for his life. Panting heavily, he races deeper into the forest. He pushes onward, hearing the sounds of pursuit close behind. His mind races with pain as he focuses only on escaping. Suddenly, an unseen force strikes him from behind. He realizes his enhancement magic is fading as he nears a cliff. A look of pained shock crosses his face. He loses his footing and tumbles violently down the rocky slope. Stopping against a tree, he clutches a bleeding wound in his side. Exhausted and injured, he collapses onto the ground. A tear escapes his eye as he stares into the distance. Then his despair turns to fury as he clenches his fist. He resolves to keep fighting for his life, no matter what. Then an idea flashes through his mind. Create a magical decoy. Just then his pursuers arrive and begin searching for him. He desperately scans his surroundings while hiding behind a tree. Suddenly he realizes he can use dark magic to give his spell mass. He plans to combine Earth Magic's clay doll with a dark form. His pursuers suddenly spot something, looking startled. They discover what they believe to be Faye's lifeless body. Believing he's finally succumbed, they approach the still form. However, the body suddenly dissolves into shimmering particles. Realizing their error, they scream threats into the forest. Meanwhile, the real Faye clutches his bleeding side in agony. He slumps against a tree, exhausted and in terrible pain. Suddenly, a gentle voice calls out, asking if he is all right. He looks up in shock to see a young woman approaching. She smiles warmly at him and offers her hand in help. She gently places a hand on his forehead, checking his condition. She observes his injuries, noting that he's clearly not okay. Then she cheerfully offers to heal him with a playful chant. Faye stares back, utterly bewildered by her childish behavior. "Just kidding," she teases, spreading her hands with a bright smile. Faye stares back, utterly bewildered by her sudden magical display. She then strikes a pose, triumphantly shouting the spell's name. High Heal. A warm, healing light immediately surrounds Faye's injured body. He recognizes it in shock as an advanced water magic spell. Glancing down, he sees the dark bloodstain on his chest. Before his eyes, the stain and the wound begin to fade. In a flash, his clothes are pristine, and the injury is completely gone. Still crouching, he is rendered completely speechless by the miracle. His mysterious savior smiles, asking if that's better now. Faye thinks about how difficult healing magic is. Yet she used an advanced spell so easily. She warns him not to move too much since the wound isn't fully closed. He manages a weak thank you, but she asks why he was hurt here. The question makes Faye sweat, unable to find an answer. The woman looks at him, confused by his panicked silence. He simply stares back, his expression deeply troubled. A painful memory of facing his family flashes through his mind. Meanwhile, the woman maintains her patient and gentle expression. Faye's eyes are wide with fear, a sweat drop running down his face. He lowers his head, looking completely lost and dejected. Faye looks up in utter disbelief, barely managing a sound. The woman smiles, assuring him that since she lives alone, his secrets are safe. He wonders to himself, his eye wide with confusion, why she would help him. She gently pats his head, explaining that he just looks so pitiful. His eye reflects the kind gesture, still processing her words. Faye manages a weak, strained smile and accepts her reasoning. After he tells her his story, they sit in silence beneath a tree. She then exclaims, finally recognizing him as part of the Panette family. He glances over at her, perplexed by her reaction to his name. She claps her hands, offering, "If you have nowhere to go, why not come to my place?" Leaning in, she excitedly says she's always wanted a son, calling it a win-win. Faye looks down, doubting if he would truly be welcome in her home. She playfully smacks his head, telling him not to be so modest. With a bright smile, she declares that the matter is settled. She warmly introduces herself, stating her name is Runadilder. Faye stammers his own name as she combines it, creating. He repeats his new name, Faye Dilder, with a slight blush. Runadilder takes his hand, officially welcoming him as they walk off together. She then looks up, telling him it's okay to call her Mama. They continue their journey along a rugged, moss-covered path in the forest. Birds soar through the sunlit forest canopy, passing over fields of blooming wildflowers, and alongside a gentle flowing stream, until 6 years later, a cabin stands nestled in the woods. Inside, a now older Faye suddenly jerks awake, startled. As Runadilder bursts in, joyfully wishing him good morning, Faye stares back at her, sweating and utterly bewildered. She appears behind him asking if he wants breakfast, but he demands to know why she's in his room. Playfully, she explains a spell on his bed alerts her, then winks. Noticing his sweaty shirt, she gets a mischievous idea. He flees the room as she cheerfully suggests they bathe together. She then pounds on the bathroom door, yelling about him using magic to lock it. Faye stands inside looking completely exhausted by her morning routine. Later at breakfast, Runadilder sits with her arms crossed, pouting at him. Her cheeks are puffed out in a childish sulk. The sight reminds him of a hamster stuffing its face. Faye struggles to suppress a sudden burst of laughter. He quickly denies it, waving his hands defensively as she questions him. A simple meal of soup and bread rests on the table. Changing the subject, she asks why he seemed so troubled when he woke up today. Faye explains he dreamed of the first day he met her, reaching out amidst an explosion. Rundhilder looks on with a slightly worried expression, simply saying. She then asks what he'd do if he ever met the Panett family again. Faye silently looks to the side, contemplating her question. He states plainly that he wouldn't really do anything. Curious, she asks why he doesn't use his incredible power. Faye recalls walking with her under a magical tree filled with lights. Glowing orbs of magic floated gently through the night sky. In that memory, he held out his hands as dark energy rose upwards. The magic then simply vanished into the air with a soft sound. Rundhilder had remarked how incredible it was, making his lack of a contract seem like a lie. Back in the present, both of them look up with startled expressions. He remembers summoning countless high-class spirits, even a dragon, as Rundhilder watched. She was completely amazed that he could call upon so many. Her eyes went wide with pure, unadulterated shock. Two powerful female spirits appeared before him in the glowing woods. Then more spirits of different appearances gathered to observe. Rundhilder identified them as the 5 Emperor Beasts. Shocking Faye, the spirits all commented on his immense magical power, unseen for years. As the spirits eagerly surround a younger Faye, Runadilder stares in complete disbelief. Runadilder recalls that the 5 great lords who were banished had contracts with the Emperor Beasts, and Faye's touch could free those spirits from their previous pacts, which is why even lower-class spirits sought refuge with him back then. This led to the Emperor Beast swarming the flustered young Faye. Returning to the present, Runadilder looks shocked. Remembering he contracted them all, Faye simply smiles, content with his current life and having met her. Then Runadilder asks if she can show him something, catching him off guard. She presents a pamphlet for a spirit school. Much to his confusion, she happily explains that he's eligible at age 13 and has already passed the document screening. Faye realizes he will still have to take an entrance test after enrolling. Walking the school halls later, he worries about encountering his brothers. Runadilder's voice narrates that without an imperial spirit, he will surely get into A class. Faye nervously agrees, knowing the uproar his actual contracts would cause. She then questions if he knows the societal difference between magicians and spirit mages. She points out this immense power gap is the reason his family tried to kill him. It's common knowledge that magicians cannot defeat spirit mages, creating a large status difference. Faye listens intently to her explanation with a serious look. She continues, detailing the class system from A to E, with magicians placed in E class. Furthermore, she reveals an exclusive S class is added for second-year students. Only the top 20 can join, and a magician has never made it in. Faye accepts his fate, understanding he'll be placed in E class. The day of enrollment arrives at the Grand Alman Royal Spirit Mage Academy. Taking it all in, he thinks to himself. So this is the place. He then walks through the gates toward the main building, ready to begin. On campus, Faye looks around nervously at all the other students. Countless footsteps echo through the crowded school hallways. While navigating the crowd, he notices people are starting to whisper. A few students murmur amongst themselves, pointing at someone nearby. Faye looks over his shoulder, wondering what the commotion is about. He then spots a very familiar and noble-looking family walking past. 2 elegantly dressed girls follow closely behind the esteemed group. A look of pure shock and dread flashes across his face. From the edge of the crowd, he watches them pass by. His grim gaze follows his family as they approach the school. A close-up reveals Faye's hand trembling with cold sweat. He immediately clenches it into a tight, shaking fist. He tries to calm himself, thinking, "It's okay. I'm supposed to be dead." Still, a bead of sweat rolls down his incredibly tense face. Afterward, he finds his classroom and sees other students gathering. A sign hangs by the door, clearly marking it as Class E. Faye steps cautiously into his new classroom, Class E. Inside, other students are already seated and chatting amongst themselves. The room buzzes with the quiet murmur of conversations. On the chalkboard, a message instructs them to find their assigned seats. As Faye sets down his bag, a boisterous student compliments his hair. Faye flinches, completely caught off guard by the sudden interaction. The boy quickly clarifies he likes girls, then realizes he forgot to introduce himself. He introduces himself as Gaison equals Downer, and Faye quietly repeats the name. Suddenly, a look of shocked recognition flashes across Faye's face. Gaison feels like he's heard Faye's name somewhere before. However, he's immediately distracted, gushing about the student council president and vice president. Another student arrives, sighing in exasperation at the boy's behavior. Gason angrily turns to confront the girl, shouting, "What did you say?" She ignores him, instead introducing herself to Faye as Iris equals Mary. Faye stumbles back in shock as Iris tells the other two to quiet down. Gason then realizes he also feels like he's seen Faye before. Faye nervously sweats, trying to dismiss it as their imagination. A flashback shows a younger Faye at a market with a blonde girl. The memory shifts to a lavish party he was forced to attend. During the party, a young Faye stood alone, watching another young girl from afar. A memory surfaces of other children mocking him for being in Class E. They call it the Yiwa Tidamam. One of the bullies angrily shouts. His friend tries to calm him, noting they are from Class A. Faye's eye widens in horror. A smug boy taunts him for being a sorcerer, trying to fight spiritual mages. The girl with Faye retorts, declaring she's not afraid to fight. Her friend holds her back, but she shouts in frustration, unable to act. Returning to the present, Faye watches his new classmates with a pained look. He now understands this is the very situation Lana-san was worried about. Back in the memory, the smug boy gives a condescending stare. Just then, an announcement that the teacher is coming breaks up the confrontation. The bullies walk away, calling Faye and the others. However, the smug boy sweats, thinking he wasn't saved at all. The scene shifts to 6 years prior, outside a grand manor during a storm. Inside a dark room, a silhouetted figure speaks to someone named Alex. Alex listens grimly, learning the matter concerns Faye. A woman explains that Faye can no longer be a spiritual sorcerer. Alex despairs, wondering how to explain this to His Majesty and the other dukes. As he thinks, lightning flashes brightly outside the window. The woman tells them that they are to blame. Meanwhile, a young boy named Bram eavesdrops nervously. He stares in shock, recognizing the voices within. Suddenly, a man named Armand appears behind him. Armand Boswell is a butler from a powerful branch family. He notes Alex's concern over Faye, which Bram confirms. Armand then asks for Bram's thoughts on the situation. Confused, Bram doesn't understand what he means. Armand clarifies, asking what Bram wishes would happen to Faye. Bram sweats, demanding to know what he's implying. A smug smile crosses Armand's face. He bluntly asks if Bram wants Faye to disappear. Bram nervously laughs, trying to brush off the question. However, he suddenly admits he wants Faye gone from this world. Pleased, Armand begins to leave with the boy. They overhear a plan to banish Faye and claim he died. Bram is shocked by the dangerous suggestion. Armand stops him, calmly asking what the problem is. Inside, Alex worries the king will discover the lie if Faye lives. Armand simply smirks as a nervous Bram watches him. Bram sweats profusely, his eyes wide with fear. He suddenly shouts that they should kill Faye. Inside, Alex and the woman are shocked by his words. Armand then offers his chosen elites to handle the matter for Alex. Bram urgently asks his father if he truly understands the situation. Alex looks on, a bead of sweat running down his face. Bram reminds him that those unable to contract spirits have no future. With his eyes closed, Alex seems to accept this cruel logic. He then turns and addresses Armand by name. Armand and Bram both look up at him. Armand simply replies, "Yes, sir," with a knowing smirk. Elsewhere, a new teacher introduces himself as Aaron Gawil. He informs the room that everyone in Class E are sorcerers. With a grin, he says he's a sorcerer, just like them. From the hallway, a voice replies that the pleasure is mutual. Aaron mentions the school's non-discrimination policy. However, he warns them that some students are still rude. He gestures toward Faye, saying some look at him like trash. Faye and a girl next to him look down, clearly hurt. Aaron adds that every year, a group tries to sabotage their graduation. Aaron clenches his fist, telling the class they must be strong for now. He passionately vows they will make their bullies pay for everything. Inspired, the entire class enthusiastically shouts in agreement. The scene flashes back to a grand church for a spirit contract ceremony. During the ritual, a young Fae watches spirits suddenly flee from him. He looks on in complete shock as they all retreat. Soon, rumors spread about the Ponette family's prodigy failing his contract. A torrential downpour drenches the somber Panette mansion. Inside a dark room, Faye's parents express their bitter disappointment in him. His father's hand grips the arm of his chair tightly. The thought of the heir becoming a mere sorcerer is an unbearable shame. The Duke declares that such a failure cannot belong to the family. Then assassins attack young Faye with a fiery tornado, screaming to kill him. A large splash of blood is seen against a white background. A young girl later finds the injured Faye hiding behind a tree. He realizes that if his survival is known, they will hunt him again. Returning to the present, Faye resolves to live this new life in obscurity. Elsewhere, the Academy's entrance ceremony is announced to the new students. Students fill a vast and opulent auditorium for the welcoming. From his seat, a student loudly insults another classmate named Gaison. The entire auditorium murmurs with student chatter before the ceremony begins. Suddenly, a figure stands on a chair to get the crowd's attention. A small girl at the podium introduces herself as Headmaster Jessica Friel. In response, the students gasp, questioning if a child is truly in charge. Whispers ripple through the hall as they guess she's only 8 years old. However, she stares down the crowd and announces she is actually 21. Her declaration causes another wave of shock among the students. While admitting her appearance is deceiving, she begins casting a spell. A student continues mocking her, but his voice is suddenly silenced. It's revealed she used sound memory magic to capture his insults. She then glares down, yelling that he has nothing to worry about. Her intimidating aura terrifies the students into stammering apologies. Calmly, she continues her speech about the school's purpose. She encourages them all to train hard to protect themselves and others. After the ceremony, Gaison remarks on the headmaster's childlike appearance. Just then, an instructor calls out Faye's full name, Faye Dalux. 2 staff members announce the start of an acceptance confirmation test. A nearby girl cheerfully notes it's just a formality after the document screening. Faye, however, appears visibly concerned by this new development. The girl watches worriedly as instructors lead a silent Faye away. Faye is led down a grand empty hallway by the 2 instructors. They explain he must hit targets using 5 elemental spells. Nearby, another student secretly confides that she can use advanced magic. Without hesitation, Faye conjures a glowing orb in his hand, shocking his proctors. He then materializes 5 elemental lances all at once. Faye aims the multi-elemental barrage toward a row of targets. The attack shoots forward. It strikes the first target perfectly. The spell pierces through the entire line of targets effortlessly. Both instructors are left completely stunned and aghast. They marvel at his power and ask for the final light and dark spells. After another flawless demonstration, a moment of silence hangs in the air. One instructor declares that Faye passes, baffled by his evenly distributed power. As Faye walks away, he muses about a spirit contract and decides to leave quickly. He turns to depart before anyone else sees him. Just then, a tentative voice calls out from behind him. He turns to see the girl from before, who nervously asks if he is Faye. She introduces herself as Maria Famis, hoping he remembers her. A close-up reveals a simple bandage on her hand. Suddenly, Faye stares back with a look of shocked realization. Faye forces a nervous smile, sweating slightly. He asks if they have met, but Maria seems confused. He hesitates for a moment. Then he introduces himself as Faye Dielk, not needing a title. Maria questions this. Recalling that the Ponette heir supposedly died, she remembers the public notice announcing the death of Faye Ponette. Sadly, she agrees that must be right. She apologizes for the misunderstanding and runs away. Later that night, the city lights twinkle. Faye hugs a pillow, deciding he must not reveal his true identity to anyone. He clenches it, reaffirming his resolve. A memory surfaces of a girl speaking about honing one's power to protect others. His eyes sharpen as he delves deeper into his memories. He recalls children, including Maria, practicing magic together. He wonders how many years it's been and if she's strong now. Yet he remembers the simple bandage on her hand. He reasons she must have simply fallen and wasn't bullied. But a lingering doubt remains in his eyes. Faye stares intently at his own hand. He then recalls a vision of Maria, bruised and lying in the grass. He remembers vowing never to use the power of the 5 emperors again. Instead, he decides he will simply live as a magician. The next morning, sunlight shines over the city's architecture. Faye squints as he wakes up in his bed. He then gets dressed in his new academy uniform. A framed photo shows a younger Faye smiling with Luna. Afterward, he makes his way through the bustling streets. He passes by the cafe where his sister works. He decides to get a job so he won't be a burden on Luna. Arriving at the academy, he enters a lively classroom. He walks to his desk and sets down his bag. A cheerful girl greets him and asks about Iris Gason. Nearby, an angry boy shouts. Faye watches them bicker, noting their cat and dog-like relationship. Suddenly, Maria enters the classroom and spots Faye. He smiles and gives her a warm morning greeting. Flustered, she gives a quick bow in return. The other two students watch their exchange with interest. Soon, an announcement directs them to the practical skills room. The students are amazed by the massive hall inside. An instructor announces they will start with basic mana manipulation. While his classmates groan, Faye listens with a small, knowing smile. The other students murmur, wanting to learn flashier magic instead. Their instructor then scolds them for their impatience and short-sightedness. Suddenly, a memory surfaces of Faye telling someone he's all right. A young girl cries with relief, looking up at him gratefully. Another memory shows a pompous noble confronting them with his friends. Faye calmly remarks that it has been 6 years. The noble boy is completely taken aback by this. He stares in disbelief, stammering in utter shock. Holding an orb of light, he reflects on his shameful past of bullying. A brief image of a younger solemn Faye appears. The scene shifts to him casting high heel on an injured girl. A brilliant pillar of light erupts around her. She watches in amazement as her wounds completely disappear. Back in the present, the class is stunned by the display. A student recognizes the spell as high-level water magic. In the memory, the healed girl sincerely thanks Faye for his help. The noble boy stammers Faye's name in total shock, recalling the memory of leaving Faye for dead in the woods. Faye's gaze remains fixed and resolute, while the healed girl worriedly asks if he was truly attacked. The noble boy gasps, his past catching up to him. Suddenly, a girl with a bow cries out. Faye turns to her, accusingly asking if she was part of it. A flashback shows him dying, believing he was killed 6 years ago. The crowd in the memory is utterly confused by his words. Meanwhile, the healed girl stares at Faye with deep concern. Faye reveals the body they burned was a high-level magical doll. The noble shouts in disbelief, saying such magic was impossible back then. Faye simply states that's the reason he is here now. Clenching his fist, the noble mutters that Faye is a monster. His thoughts reveal his deep-seated jealousy and frustration. He remembers always wishing Faye would just disappear from his life. In the past, he demands to know why Faye helped a dropout. Faye's eyes narrow dangerously at the insult. He then stands protectively before the girl, flatly refusing to leave. The noble smirks, accusing Faye of enjoying bullying the weak. The noble boy angrily prepares magic, asking if Faye will side with the weak, then shouts Flame Lance, unleashing his spell directly at Faye. But a powerful counterspell erupts from Faye's hand, creating a massive defensive barrier that protects the onlookers. The other students are stunned, realizing Faye's magic is vastly superior, and the noble is blasted backward by the overwhelming force. His bitter memories of Faye's favored status resurface, fueling his intense jealousy. He then internally asks if Faye truly understands his newfound power. While the girl with the bow recognizes the magic with dawning horror, the noble gloats that this is the one power Faye could never obtain. Raising his hand to summon a high-level spirit from a massive magic circle, a ferocious flame wolf materializes, his powerful contracted spirit. He then demands Faye kneel and beg for forgiveness immediately. But Faye's eyes narrow, disgusted by how he treats the spirit like an object. At the noble's command, the flame wolf launches a volley of fiery needles. Faye calmly counters by erecting a protective water wall, which completely sizzles and evaporates the fiery projectiles upon impact. The noble is utterly stunned that his attack was so easily nullified. Meanwhile, the crowd grows fearful of his reckless use of magic. He screams back that he doesn't care about weaklings. Faye taunts his opponent, suggesting he's reached his magical limit. But internally, Faye scoffs at the very idea of a limit, vowing that he won't be looked down upon any longer. The noble's face fills with pure shock and disbelief, while Faye offers a cold, confident smirk, and his opponent's eyes widen in dawning horror. Desperately, the noble launches a. In response, Faye calmly raises his hand, forming a complex water magic circle. Water begins to bubble up from the cobblestones around him, quickly rising into a swirling torrent that surrounds his body. The crowd gasps, shocked by this unexpected display. Faye then unleashes a massive water wave spell. The huge wave rushes across the courtyard with immense force, surging powerfully towards its singular target. However, the water skillfully flows around the onlookers, leaving them dry. The noble grabs his head, terrified by the approaching attack. He is then completely engulfed by the crushing torrent. The wave washes him far away, leaving him in a defeated heap. Faye lowers his hand as the other students stare in stunned amazement. They marvel at his precise mana control, hitting only his intended target. The crowd recognizes him as the Ponette family's supposedly dead eldest son, but his defeated opponent struggles to his feet, trying to attack again. His spirit wolf starts to form, then abruptly stops in its tracks. The noble panics, screaming about why his familiar won't move. Faye then reveals his unique magic, a spell called Elemental Control, which has the power to temporarily halt the movements of spirits. His adversary shouts in disbelief, unable to accept that such a power exists. Faye calmly mentions that his magic does have a few limitations, while onlookers realize it's connected to his failed spirit contract. With a smirk, Faye wonders aloud what to do with his foe. The noble backs away in fear, demanding to know what's happening. Faye yells, "Rock ball," kicking a large stone at the boy. The rock smacks him squarely in the head. Leaning in, Faye warns him to never bully the weak again. As the boy tries to crawl away, he yells for Faye to wait. Another rock ball slams down, pinning him to the ground. The bully is left twitching on the cobblestones as the crowd watches. A girl looks on with tears in her eyes, relieved Faye is safe. She timidly tries to get his attention, calling out to him. Faye coldly tells her, "Miss Ellis, I am no longer your brother." Ellis stares blankly, heartbroken by his harsh words. Later that night, Faye returns to his simple apartment. He leans against the wall in the shower, looking exhausted. Water streams down as he tries to wash away the day's fatigue. He quietly admits to himself how tired he is. The memory of Elise's stunned expression flashes in his mind, followed by the image of Melia's happy, tear-streaked face. Back in his room, Faye tosses and turns restlessly in bed. Though hungry, he feels far too sleepy to get up and eat. Suddenly, a sound breaks the silence of his apartment. A soft chime echoes from his front door. The persistent ringing continues, disturbing his slumber. Faye's eyes snap open as he registers the noise. A nearby clock tower ticks away, showing how late it is. Sitting up, he wonders who would visit at this hour. He suddenly fears it might be assassins from the Ponette family. The doorbell chimes again, demanding attention. He gulps nervously as he approaches the sound. With a click, Faye cautiously opens the door to peek outside. It's Melia, who shyly asks if she can please stay the night. Faye asks Melia what happened, seeing her at his door. She explains she can no longer stay at the mansion. Melia clenches her fist, mentioning Bram is involved. The scene flashes back to a few hours earlier, with Elis looking shocked. Cecilia nervously explains that her siblings had a fight. Elis looks confused by the strange explanation. She gasps as she puts the pieces together. Nearby, a bruised Bram insists that nothing happened. An argument then erupts outside the family mansion. Elis watches on, looking utterly exasperated by the commotion. Bram suddenly yells at Melia to mind her own business. Elis calmly intervenes, prompting Melia to reveal Faye is alive. Hearing this, her parents appear, completely shocked by the news. While her family is enraged, Ellis and her friends are overjoyed. Bram then claims Faye used magic, knocking him out. Melia stares in disbelief at his blatant lie. He shouts that he heroically shielded Elise from the attack. The father muses that Faye's resentment is understandable. Bram proudly accepts the praise, further irking Ellis. Later, Ellis tells her father she has a favor to ask. Elis desperately tries to correct her father's assumption. He turns around, silhouetted by the window. The father then asks her what she means by that. Back in the present, Melia asks Faye how he found her. Cecilia smugly explains she investigated on her own. She also mentions Bram is currently resting in his room. Melia stammers, trying to begin her apology. She suddenly prostrates herself on the wooden floor. Faye is completely taken aback by her action. Melia apologizes for failing to tell his family the truth. He looks down, perplexed by her talk of punishment. Faye reassures Melia that he doesn't blame her for anything. He tells her she's an outsider and shouldn't get deeply involved. His words, Faye warns that Alex knowing the truth would make him a target. Suddenly, Melia's stomach growls loudly in the quiet room. Faye asks if she's hungry, causing her to blush. He gives her a slight, knowing smile. Sometime later, Melia enjoys a refreshing shower. Afterwards, Faye offers her his bed for the night. Melia nervously asks if they're going to sleep together. Faye freezes, the question echoing in his mind. Flustered, Melia quickly insists that she is perfectly fine. She clarifies that her trust in him makes it okay. He wonders if her trust means she doesn't see him as a man. However, she declares that if he sleeps on the floor, she will too. Realizing he's cornered, Faye reluctantly agrees to share the bed. Soon they lie side by side, both stiff with nervousness. Lying awake, Faye realizes this situation feels familiar. He recalls the time Cecilia would crawl into his bed. Turning his head, he sees Melia sleeping peacefully. A soft smile appears on his face as he watches her. The next morning, sunlight fills the room as Faye wakes up. He finds Melia already awake, wishing him a good morning. Faye then gets up and offers her a simple breakfast. After their meal, they head towards the academy. Upon arriving, they find a stone bench completely destroyed. Faye wonders who could have done this, but Melia seems resigned. He considers using magic to fix it, but decides against it. Instead, he peeks into an empty classroom before classes begin. Melia shyly approaches Faye in the empty classroom. He immediately recognizes the worn book she's carrying. A flashback shows him giving it to a younger, bullied Melia. Faye is touched she's kept it and read it so thoroughly. Beaming, Melia explains how happy receiving it made her. He then suggests they practice magic together, and she eagerly agrees. Her heart pounds, thrilled to spend time with him just like before. Faye notices her excitement and asks if everything is all right. At that moment, a hooded figure peeks into the classroom. Suddenly, Fumus appears, teasing the two for being together so early. Another classmate then grabs Faye, saying he heard all about yesterday. He grins, referring to the incident with the Ponet's son. The friend excitedly says Faye is now the talk of the school. Faye is shocked, realizing his friends don't know his true identity. His friend mistakes Faye's stare, nervously clarifying he's not interested. Faye inwardly questions why no one has mentioned Faye Ponet. More classmates gather around, praising him for yesterday's duel. He sweats, confirming to himself that they really don't know. His friend wonders about his calm reaction, but Faye dismisses it. Just then, Aaron Sensei enters, calling Faye their star of hope. Aaron Sensei cheers, thrilled that a mage has finally beaten a spirit user. Faye internally repeats the phrase. He worries they'd be deeply disappointed to learn he has a high-tier spirit. Faye reassures his concerned teacher that he was just relieved. The teacher suddenly remembers the headmaster summoned Faye. Walking down the hall, Faye feels a heavy sense of dread. He panics, wondering how he'll pay for repairs or explain it to Rana. Finally, he arrives before the headmaster's massive office doors. With a deep breath, he knocks gently. Inside, a young girl sits behind an enormous desk. She introduces herself as Headmaster Jessica Farrell, confirming he is Faye DeLuc. Surprised, Faye hesitantly confirms his name. Jessica asks if he knows why he was summoned regarding yesterday's events. Regarding the crater, she says repair fees are waived if he reflects on his actions. Faye breathes a sigh of relief, but she says there's one more thing. She reveals that numerous witnesses identified him as Faye Ponetti. Washta begins to sweat, looking extremely anxious. The headmaster stares directly at him, asking for an answer. He clarifies that he is formerly a Ponet. Jessica closes her eyes, calmly acknowledging his correction. Jessica asks if it's true his family tried to kill him. She then asks if he silenced the incident for his own convenience. Faye stares in wide-eyed shock. The headmaster notices his reaction, asking what's wrong. She sits back, muttering about the selfish ways of adults. Then she purses her lips with a slight pout. Faye is completely stunned by her perception. She explains that politically it's better to indebt the Ponet family than punish them. However, they will likely have some territory confiscated to save the king's authority. Faye admits he was being provocative during the duel. Jessica quickly tells him to just forget about it. She adds that the Ponet's mistreatment of their people ensures their eventual downfall. Faye asks if that's all, but Jessica says there's one more thing. She suddenly brings up his unique magic, elemental control. She demands to know how he can dominate a spirit and seal its movements. Looking down, Faye states that he cannot answer. Jessica presses him, asking why, since its existence is already known. He admits this is true, but he cannot teach the conditions for its use. Visibly surprised and disappointed, she asks why. Faye remains stubbornly silent, giving no answer. He knows revealing the conditions for his magic would expose him, which he must avoid. Jessica simply accepts his silence, then thanks him for defeating the spirit user. Faye, however, brushes off her gratitude, saying he only did it for himself. His candid response leaves the headmaster momentarily speechless. When asked if something is wrong, she quickly claims nothing is amiss. She silently wonders how he could have become so mature for his age. With their discussion over, Faye finally excuses himself from her office. While leaving, he glances at her bookshelf, noticing some peculiar titles. Books on how to appear more mature are reflected in his shocked eye. He pauses at the door to tell her she's already plenty charming. The comment leaves a flustered Jessica completely stunned as the door closes. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, a muscular teacher lectures enthusiastically. The rest of the students listen attentively, but Faye's seat is empty. Bram later finds Faye, asking why he was talking so long, and missed class. Sometime later, the friends make their way to the bustling cafeteria. As Faye gets his food with Elise, Plum points out he forgot his fork. Elise observes their friendly interaction with a quiet, disapproving glance. The group then gathers at a table to eat their lunch together. Suddenly, Elise asks Faye why Plum calls him with the honorific Sama. A flustered Faye vaguely explains it's just due to their long acquaintance. Faye then tells the blushing Plum to stop calling him with honorifics, explaining that it feels strange for classmates, which shocks her. As her heart pounds, she nervously tries to say his name informally. Elise, however, watches the entire exchange with a knowing smirk. Suddenly, a firm hand grips Faye's shoulder from behind. He turns to see an unfamiliar older student standing there. She introduces herself as Vice President Cecilia and summons him to the student council. His friends look on, confused by the unexpected interruption. Cecilia immediately turns and walks away down the hall. Faye stares in disbelief, recognizing his estranged older sister. Her formal request to see him echoes in his mind. His expression becomes grim as he decides what to do. A short while later, he stands before the student council room door. Inside, he sits alone, waiting on an opulent sofa. Faye finally breaks the silence, asking why he was brought here. Across the room, Cecilia quietly prepares a pot of tea. She explains that the president will arrive soon to speak with him. His sister then places a cup of tea before him. He looks up at her, a bit startled by the gesture. Taking a nervous sip, he once again asks what she wants. Cecilia nervously explains she has something she needs to ask him. So Faye questions if this is an official matter from the vice president. She flinches, clearly taken aback by his formal demeanor. With tears in her eyes, she asks what if it's a personal question from his sister. Faye simply crosses his arms, remaining cold and distant. He states that he has no intention of answering anything personal. His blunt refusal leaves her completely speechless. Clenching her fists, she decides to ask as the vice president instead. Faye immediately accuses her of abusing her authority. She then demands to know why he enrolled at the academy. He scoffs, asking why he would ever want to see his former family. Faye simply explains he has no plans for revenge and came on a friend's recommendation. He declares the Panett family means nothing to him now. A glimmer of hope appears in Cecilia's eyes as she asks if he forgives her. Faye stares at her, sweat dropping in confusion. He wonders what she could possibly be misunderstanding. His expression hardens as he asks if she really expects forgiveness. Cecilia's face falls, her hope instantly turning to despair. He clarifies that not seeking revenge is not the same as forgiveness. He recalls their affection was always tied to his power, not to him as a person. He recalls his family taught him that people are ugly and self-interest comes first. Then he looks at Cecilia and tells her she is just like them. He questions why she asked for forgiveness before even trying to apologize. His sharp words leave Cecilia utterly shocked and speechless. Faye remembers that he has met people much warmer than his family. Meanwhile, Cecilia looks down, her face filled with sad resignation. Suddenly, the door to the room bursts wide open. A cheerful girl named Layla enters, loudly apologizing for her tardiness. Faye is visibly startled by the sudden and loud interruption. Cecilia, however, remains seated with a heartbroken expression. Noticing the heavy atmosphere, Layla gives Cecilia a chance to leave. Layla formally introduces herself, asking if Faye remembers her. Her family, the Mallets, are also one of the prestigious 7 ducal houses. Faye asks what she wants, and she playfully holds up 2 fingers. Her first reason was arranging his meeting with Cecilia, annoying Faye. For her second reason, she blushes and declares that she wants him. Faye scoffs, assuming she must be mistaken about something. Layla gets in his face, attempting to recruit him for the student council, but he refuses. Her companion is shocked, calling him the hope of mages for defeating Bram. The girl acknowledges Bram was just an immature child during their fight. Layla winks, clarifying she doesn't want him immediately. As she explains, a first-year joining would upset the upperclassmen. So, she excitedly announces the creation of a student council assistant position. A senior confirms the headmaster approved it just this morning. When Faye asks about his duties, her companion simply shouts, "Chores!" Layla happily explains he'll gain a year of experience before officially joining. His companion points out Cecilia's involvement, but Faye dismisses its relevance. Layla then argues his presence on the council would elevate the status of all mages. This argument gives Faye a moment of shocked pause. He imagines Amelia, realizing it could reduce the bullying she endures from classmates. Yet he knows it would also mean getting involved with the Panett family. Snapping back to reality, he shouts that he absolutely refuses. Annoyed, Layla puffs her cheeks as he insists there are too many downsides. His firm refusal seems to genuinely surprise her. She then lets out a long, disappointed sigh. So she asks him to explain the reason for such a strong refusal. He declares that he never wants to be involved with that family ever again. Furthermore, he calls her out for orchestrating the meeting with Cecilia. Layla is stunned, questioning his harsh attitude towards Cecilia. Faye simply sips his tea, coldly stating it's none of her business. An uncomfortable silence hangs in the air, but Layla whispers that she still wants him on the council. So she offers to let him recommend 2 other mages if he joins, explaining the new assistant council has a maximum of 6 members, which would create a perfect 3-to-3 balance between mages and spirit users. Intrigued by this surprisingly good deal, Faye begins to reconsider. Though he questions if the merit-based student council would even mind mages joining, to which Layla confidently promises to dedicate 3 spots exclusively for mages, as long as the candidates have high administrative abilities. She also clarifies that their promotion to the main council next year isn't guaranteed, causing Faye to groan at the endless conditions. Sensing his hesitation, Layla makes a final, teary-eyed plea, which completely catches him off guard. After he finally relents, she excitedly tells him to bring 2 others tomorrow. As a weary Faye agrees and turns to leave, Layla calls out to him, gently asking him to please try talking with Cecilia one more time. The request makes him freeze at the door, and he coldly tells her she's being far too meddlesome. Leaving the room, he heads off to hold a strategy meeting for the upcoming test. Upon arriving at the cafe, Amelia excitedly waves him over. He finds a table already laden with desserts she ordered, and Amelia cheerfully observes that his love for sweets hasn't changed, surprising both Bram and Eris, who are also present. As Faye blissfully stuffs his cheeks full of cake, the 4 of them enjoy their desserts together at the cafe. Meanwhile, in another part of the academy, Cecilia asks Bram and Eris to join the new assistant student council, clarifying that it's an apprentice position with a path to promotion. Her sister smugly calls it a desperate plan to recruit talented underclassmen, which seems to make Eris even more anxious. Cecilia ignores her and tells Eris to come to the student council room tomorrow, but Eris looks down, still filled with self-doubt. So Cecilia encourages her, reminding Eris of her top-class abilities. Elsewhere, Amelia instructs Bram on how to expand his magical energy, but his attempt only produces weak puffs of smoke. His second try is no better, earning a harsh critique from Amelia. The 2 then devolve into a heated argument. Just as Faye and Eris arrive to find them already training, Faye then asks Amelia about her own progress, making her stutter. In response, she proudly demonstrates her ability to summon 3 spirit blades. A flashback shows a younger Amelia only managing a wisp of smoke from her thumb. Faye smiles, impressed by her daily practice in the high purity of her magic. He then mentions Eris's excellent magic manipulation, despite its lower purity. Afterward, Faye turns to Amelia and asks for her hand. He gently takes it, causing a flustered Amelia to blush. Bram and Eris immediately yell at them for being too flirtatious. Faye clarifies he's just going to let her feel his magic's flow. A brilliant light envelops their clasped hands as his energy transfers. Eris closes her eyes, sweating from the sheer pressure of his power. Both she and Bram are amazed by the beauty of his magical energy. Amelia realizes Faye's magic is circulating through her own pathways at a constant speed. She focuses intently, trying to sync her magic with the flow. Suddenly, a bright aura successfully erupts from her own hand. Eris cheers for her, and Faye encourages her that she'll master the spell soon. Amelia then taunts Bram, asking if he's all right being surpassed. Bram smirks confidently, announcing that he has a countermeasure. His grand plan is simply to sleep through class. He laughs, claiming Mr. Aaron's class is so easy he can sleep. Suddenly, a cold sweat drips down Bram's terrified face. A menacing silhouette looms behind him, asking about his last test score. Mr. Aaron grabs a terrified Bram, who attempts to sneak away. The teacher threatens special lessons if he doesn't get a perfect score. As the group decides to eat, Faye says he has somewhere else to be. Faye stands in a hallway, contemplating his choices for an upcoming task. Making up his mind, he knocks gently on the large wooden door. He seems slightly confused by what happens next. The door opens, revealing the student council president, who was expecting him. She presents the official student roster, correctly guessing his intentions. The president explains it's natural for a new student to struggle with choosing partners. She eagerly asks if he's considered choosing from his own classmates. Flustered, Faye admits he doesn't know any of the other students yet. She teases him for being so serious when it's already too late. The president then offers to make the selections for him herself. She smiles confidently, claiming to have most student information memorized. Faye gratefully accepts her offer to choose, to which she happily agrees. She invites him for lunch, but he politely declines the offer. Faye takes his leave, bowing slightly as he exits the room. The president sits alone, somewhat dejected, and says she'll see him later. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, a student aggressively demands to know where Faye is. The commotion escalates as the student shouts for Faye, and Eris tries to calm Bram down. Bram is grabbed violently by an angry student. Just then, Faye arrives at their table, surprising his friends. The aggressive student immediately turns on Faye, shouting his name. He yells at Faye to control Bram, boasting about his noble family. Faye calmly asks if the student can even manifest his spirit yet. The student explodes in anger, while Faye sighs in annoyance. Smirking, he proudly announces he's joining the student council. Faye remains utterly unimpressed by this declaration. The student clarifies it's an auxiliary group made just for him. This, he explains, means he can do whatever he wants without consequence. Faye corrects him, stating that causing trouble is still forbidden. Defeated, the student backs down, taking his leave while muttering a warning. Once they're gone, Faye notes his magic still hasn't recovered. He looks towards a school tower, finding the situation increasingly tedious. Elsewhere, the scene changes to a grand, imposing castle. Three men kneel before a king sitting silently on his throne. An advisor argues they cannot ignore the actions of a great house. However, another cautions that a heavy-handed punishment could cause rebellion. The third advisor fears that inaction will damage the king's authority. Throughout the debate, the silhouetted king listens from his throne. The scene changes back to the academy classroom. Maria cheerfully tells Faye that she will wait for him. With a bright smile, she insists that he shouldn't worry. Flustered, Faye says he can't possibly make her wait. He then arrives at an ornate door for a meeting. Inside, the student council president happily welcomes a surprise Faye. She gives a charming wink, saying she was just excited. Another member begins introducing two mages chosen by the president. A confident young man introduces himself as Graham Nelson, a second year. Next, a friendly girl named Celia Riley also introduces herself. Fee introduces himself, but Graham says he already knows who he is. Graham recalls watching Faye's fight. Amazed, a mage beat a spirit user. Celia then adds that they are both from the Ponette territory. They explain they know most of the situation but were sworn to secrecy. Relieved, Faye thanks them for their discretion, which is a great help. The president then sighs, wondering why Bram is so late. Graham looks shocked, questioning if Bram is also joining the council. Faye grows nervous at how casually Graham referred to the Lord's son. The president explains that other members and teachers recommended Bram. She states the council is a meritocracy, and Bram's skills can't be disputed. Graham explains that mages keenly feel the gap between them and spirit users. They feel a painful difference in their abilities. Hearing this, Faye looks back at them with a hint of sweat. Celia then realizes that Faye might be their only hope. Smiling warmly, Graham tells Faye to let them know if anything happens. Celia excitedly chimes in, offering her help as well. Faye is momentarily stunned by their supportive words. He then gives a genuine smile and thanks them. Just then, the door opens as someone apologizes for being late. A girl named Eunice Cessna, a second year, nervously introduces herself. Faye realizes the student council now has another mage and a spirit user. The others awkwardly introduce themselves to the newcomer, bowing in unison. Faye stares at Eunice, a look of confusion on his face. Eunice seems puzzled, noting that Faye doesn't seem to despise mages. Faye continues to stare intently at her, lost in thought. She asks him if something is wrong, but he just says it's nothing. Without warning, the doors swing open again with a loud bang. Faye sweats nervously, knowing exactly who has arrived. Bram bursts into the room, followed by another girl. He stops in his tracks, demanding to know why Faye is there. The girl with Bram tears up, calling Faye her brother. As Bram reacts with shock, Faye says they're no longer brothers. Bram then explodes, demanding to know why a mage is present. Celia cheerfully explains she created 3 new mage positions. Furious, Bram kicks a table, shouting that weaklings are not welcome. The other girl panics, insisting her loss was just due to carelessness. Faye coldly retorts that losing from carelessness simply shows her limit. Bram roars once more, refusing to accept this. Faye stares back, genuinely surprised by the intense outburst. Suddenly, Graham intervenes by grabbing Bram's arm. Bram struggles, demanding to know who Graham is. Graham says he won't stand by while a junior is threatened. Turning his anger, Bram asks if Graham is also a mage. Graham smirks, confirming it and squeezing Bram's arm tightly. After releasing him, Graham tells a worried Faye not to mind it. Eunice tries to help Bram, who snaps at her to be quiet. Graham then questions Bram's disrespectful attitude toward his brother. Bram yells back that Faye is just a stranger to him now. Graham glares, stating he despises people like Bram and will protect Faye. Faye watches on, utterly stunned by Graham's passionate defense. Bram furiously declares this a family matter, telling Graham to stay out of it. He then shouts for Graham to shut up, his anger boiling over. Suddenly, a small water ball flies through the air, splashing directly onto a stunned Bram, soaking him completely. Everyone turns to see Celia's hand extended, the source of the magic. She sternly warns that she will not tolerate any more of his rampage. Bram, taken aback, stammers an apology for his outburst. Still fuming, he glares intensely while Faye stands nervously beside him. Bram then requests a duel with Faye to settle their dispute, citing school tradition. Celia concedes that duels are permitted, but she seems hesitant to approve. Bram immediately taunts Faye, asking if he is too scared to fight. A smug grin crosses his face as he challenges his brother. Faye calmly agrees, arranging to meet in the practice room later. As he leaves, Bram vows to teach Faye a lesson and warns him not to run. Eunice follows behind him, her face etched with deep concern. Graham then asks Celia why she would allow such a person on the council. Celia explains that most officers are unaware of each other's roles. She notes that Bram is usually obedient, but loses all control before Faye. That is why she wanted both of them where she could watch them. Graham realizes this was the true reason for her desperate recruitment efforts. Celia admits she feels bad, but hopes this will solve the family's darkness. Graham looks on in awe, realizing the true depth of her plan. Meanwhile, Faye wonders if Maria is still waiting for him. He enters the classroom to find her there, waving happily. She asks if his business is done, but he nervously denies it. Faye looks troubled, a sweat drop running down his cheek. Noticing his demeanor, Maria asks what's wrong, her expression full of concern. He tells her to go home first, but she insists on coming along. Faye sighs in resignation while Maria celebrates her small victory. Soon after, they arrive at the grand practice room building. Inside, they run into Leon and the others, who greet Faye with surprise. Leon asks why he's here, explaining he was just practicing his enchant body. Just then, Celia appears, announcing a duel between Faye and Bram. Leon shouts in complete disbelief at the sudden announcement. He quickly darts out of the way, still stunned. Faye apologizes for interrupting, while Maria looks on in horror. A flustered Leon quickly stammers that he understands the situation. Celia suggests they watch from a safe place on the upper balcony. As the brothers face off, Celia explains the rules and begins the duel. Bram immediately prepares an attack, shouting that the first strike is his. Bram launches a barrage of fireballs, but Faye dodges effortlessly with enchant body. From the balcony, Leon admires Faye's beautiful magic, then worriedly asks Maria if she is concerned. But she smiles, proclaiming there's no way Faye can lose. Down below, Bram realizes his simple magic won't work, prompting Faye to state he can't win without advanced magic. A wicked grin spreads across Bram's face, as he mockingly asks if this is the advanced magic Faye wanted. Bram is suddenly engulfed in a powerful fiery aura, unleashing the advanced fire spell, Flame Wave. Faye's eyes widen in genuine shock, as the immense wall of fire rushes toward him. He instantly counters with a chantless advanced water wave, causing the two opposing spells to violently collide. A massive cloud of steam erupts, shocking Leon and Maria, while Faye struggles to hold his ground against the immense pressure. When the steam clears, the two brothers are at a standstill. Faye is stunned that they are evenly matched, but Bram laughs, declaring it's not over yet. Faye is stunned that Bram used another advanced spell chantlessly, while Maria remarks chantless advanced magic is nearly impossible. The vice president quietly fears Faye may be outmatched, as Bram launches a second advanced spell, Water Wave. The powerful torrent of water rushes towards Faye, who quickly erects a defensive water wall to block it. Faye remains calm, having anticipated a surprise attack. He recalls the chantless fire wave but chanted flame lance, and realizes with horror that Bram is using spirit magic. The revelation sends a shiver down his spine, as he can't fathom how Bram is completely unfatigued. A bead of sweat rolls down Faye's tense face, just as he hears a faint ominous sound. A sharp crack echoes through the dueling ground. Suddenly, Bram is trapped within a watery vortex, a result of Faye's own quick-cast water wave. But Faye gasps in shock at what happens next, as Bram laughs maniacally, screaming for him to die. The water prison transforms into a giant, snarling wolf, leaving Maria and the others watching in sheer terror. However, Faye calmly counters with his own water wave, immediately following up with a windstream spell. The opposing magics clash and cancel each other out, erupting in a shower of neutralized magical energy. Bram's eyes widen in absolute disbelief, as the force of the blast sends him flying backward. Maria and her companion are completely amazed by the display, While the vice president seethes in frustration, Amelia blushes, awestruck by the power of the trembling sorcerer. Faye stands over the defeated Bram on the ground, then correctly identifies his power source as an Alna Ore. This rare ore can store magical power for later use, allowing even novices to unleash powerful spells, a privilege reserved for nobles. Bram scoffs, retorting, "There's no rule against using them." He gets up, mocking Faye before declaring that wealth is also a form of power. Bram laughs maniacally, boasting that authority, riches, and knowledge are all his. Faye simply sighs and asks to pose a question, wondering who was the one to store the magic in the ore. With a smug grin, Bram proudly reveals it was his father, triggering a traumatic flashback for Faye of his own family. Faye recalls his desire to surpass his father with magic, but a deep-seated grudge he tried to forget still lingers. The memory of being cast out and left for dead resurfaces as his eyes burn with resolve, magic gathering in his hand. The vice president eagerly awaits, demanding to see the boy's power, while Bram, getting cocky, unleashes a. He then forms a bow from pure flames, taking aim, prompting Amelia and her companion to cry out Faye's name. Faye remains utterly still, his face shadowed and eyes glowing. As he remembers the day his family exiled him, his father's voice echoes, ordering him to leave and never return, followed by a vision of his brother attacking him with fire. A dark determination fills Faye to utterly crush his opponent's magic, and he raises a fist, preparing to make the attack vanish. Faye then unleashes his own spell. Two massive tornadoes of wind swirl violently across the floor, as Bram confidently fires a flaming arrow into the maelstrom. He watches in sudden disbelief as his attack nears the vortex, and his powerful flaming arrow is completely extinguished on contact. Amelia and the others can only stare, stunned into silence. Faye stands before the rubble, with Bram buried underneath the destroyed wall. He calmly asks if it's his victory, which the vice president confirms is obvious. However, Bram struggles to his feet, refusing to accept defeat. Amelia glares, telling him that his struggling is pathetic to watch. Bram sweats profusely, muttering about why he would lose to someone like Faye. He suddenly snaps, screaming at Faye for always surpassing him. Faye is taken aback, confused by his brother's intense reaction. Bram furiously insists he can't lose to someone who only relied on talent. He then screams that Faye should have been killed back then. Faye flinches, clearly shocked by his brother's murderous declaration. Suddenly, an unseen person shouts that what Bram said is not true. Everyone turns in surprise towards the sound of the new voice. A girl with a bow explains that Faye used to train relentlessly from morning until night. Tears stream down her face as she decries Bram, dismissing his hard work as just talent. Faye looks at the girl, completely bewildered by her passionate defense. The vice president simply says he will handle the repairs for the wall. Amelia then grabs Faye's arm, telling him it's time for them to go. Their companion calls out to Faye as he's being led away. Faye apologizes, saying he's too tired and will catch up later. He and Amelia walk away down a quiet, empty street. As they walk, a voice suddenly calls out for Faye from a nearby building. Faye then notices Amelia is flustered and asks her what's wrong. He looks down, confused, asking what she meant about her hand. Amelia simply blushes intensely, her heart pounding in her chest. Realizing he's holding her hand, Faye becomes flustered while she squeezes it happily. He immediately lets go with an apology, startling her. A brief flash of disappointment crosses Amelia's face. Faye stammers that he was holding on unconsciously, and she assures him it's okay. He quickly changes the subject, telling her to go take a bath since she must be tired. Faye then rushes off towards the bathroom, leaving Amelia standing alone. Inside, he stands before the shower and turns on the water. Later, Faye sits silently on the edge of his bed, looking down. He suddenly collapses onto the bed, kicking his legs while questioning his awkward behavior. His expression then turns serious as he reflects on recent events. He remembers unleashing a storm of magic during his fight with Bram. Looking at his palm, he realizes he fought out of anger and hasn't grown at all. Faye falls back onto the bed, concluding he's just the same as Bram. However, the image of the crying girl from before flashes in his mind. He clenches his fist, shouting to himself that it's not true. Faye bolts upright in bed, seemingly struck by a sudden realization. He realizes Eris wouldn't hate him, but rather others drove him away. Back in the present, he clutches his head in frustration. Suddenly, a new thought strikes him and he gasps. His eyes dart towards a bookshelf in his room. On a shelf, a clear crystal orb begins to glow. The next morning arrives outside the school building. Claris questions someone about their low magic purity despite their skills. Guy suddenly collapses, dramatically complaining about being tired. They argue, with Guy boasting about quantity over quality. Just then, Faye and Amelia arrive and greet them cheerfully. Guy and Clarice immediately get annoyed seeing them together so early. Faye simply chuckles, amused by their reaction. Guy stares for a moment, momentarily flustered. He quickly rallies, shouting for them to get on with it. As they walk, Faye calls out to Guy, who seems confused. Faye asks why Guy hasn't mentioned yesterday's fight. To his surprise, Guy brushes it off, saying it's not a big deal. Guy admits he's curious but can tell the situation is complicated. He smiles, saying it's better than forcing an explanation. Amelia praises his rare thoughtfulness, which immediately goes to his head. Guy looks on, confused, as the others tease him for his boastfulness. Later in the classroom, the students sit in tense silence. Guy fiercely declares he'll avoid supplementary lessons and focus his magic. The teacher overhears and sighs, deciding to prepare extra worksheets instead. He then turns his attention towards Faye, calling out his name. The teacher asks a surprised Faye to help tutor Guy, who is already asleep. He explains that Guy might actually take studying seriously if Faye helps. Emphasizing its importance, he pleads with Faye to do it for Guy's sake. Faye nervously agrees to do what he can to help his friend. After the teacher leaves, Faye watches Guy sleep, wondering when to begin. Suddenly, a girl with twin drill hair approaches with a message from the headmaster. Faye stares down at the formal-looking letter, perplexed. The scene shifts to a past memory at a grand mansion. Inside an office, Bram recounts recent events to his family. He explains that upon learning Faye joined the student council, he challenged him and lost. His mother is furious, questioning how he could lose and accusing Faye of cheating. Eris quickly interjects, insisting her brother would never do such a thing. The entire family turns to look at her, surprised by her defense. Her father coldly states Faye is dead to them and forbids her from calling him brother. Eris is left completely shocked and hurt by her father's cruel words. Bram's father demands why he lost, and Bram nervously claims he wasn't serious. He explains it would be wrong to use full power against another magician. While Eris and her sister can only look on in silence, their enraged father demands the truth, but Bram shouts that he isn't lying. He then changes topics, asking what happened to the Arna Aura. Bram stammers that he used the valuable artifact for magic research. His parents, however, look entirely unconvinced by his excuse. The father then turns to Eris, demanding to know what happened. Eris timidly reveals Bram used spirit magic with the ore, but was still defeated by Faye. Bram looks utterly stunned that his sister revealed the truth. Just then, their intense family meeting is interrupted by a knock. A servant enters, nervously announcing a royal decree from the king. The memory ends, returning to the present, where Faye holds a similar royal letter. It is a summons for the entire Panette family to the Almond Kingdom's castle. Back in the memory, the father clenches his fist, angry at Faye's inclusion. He seethes, wishing he had killed Faye with his own hands. In the present, Faye reads his own summons to appear at the castle in 10 days. He stares ahead, contemplating the weight of this royal command. The twin drill-haired girl then gets Faye's attention once more. She presents him with a formal suit for his royal audience. Faye stammers, refusing the suit, but the girl insists he doesn't own one. She then explains he can't go to the capital in his current attire. A touched Faye blushes slightly, gratefully accepting her offer. He touches the fine fabric, wondering how many years it's been. She then states the carriage arrives in 9 days, not 10, confusing Faye. In response to his confusion, she offers a confident smile. It's because the journey to the royal capital takes half a day, she explains. Elsewhere, a blonde woman at a cabin stops doing laundry, startled by something. A sudden gust of wind violently shakes the tree branches. She gazes into the distance, her expression suddenly serious. Holding a fallen leaf, she muses that Faye is going to the capital. With a determined smile, she decides she must act for her cute son. Back in the city, Faye has since changed into his new suit. A young girl named Melia claps her hands, admiring his sharp appearance. Faye looks flustered by her praise as she kneels before him. He then looks down, noticing something is missing from his outfit. The twin drill girl suddenly gets close, telling him he forgot his necktie. Faye sweats nervously, surprised by her sudden proximity. Seeing this, Melia panics and apologizes profusely for the mistake. Faye calmly turns to Melia, asking her to watch the house while he's away. Melia is stunned by his request, questioning if she can really use the house freely. She then expresses her concern about his journey to the capital, implying he might encounter the people who exiled him. But Faye simply gives her a confident and reassuring smile, which only makes Melia look at him with more worry. So he kneels down, gently reassuring her that everything will be fine. Sometime later, Faye arrives at the front of a grand academy building. where a crowd of people bustles around the entrance gates. There, the twin drill girl tells Faye she must leave for class. She watches him depart, a faint blush on her cheeks. Her expression grows flustered as someone approaches from the side. Before she turns back to shout a heartfelt wish for his good fortune, Faye glances back over his shoulder, offering a warm smile in return. His smile then fades as he turns towards the academy grounds, his expression hardening into a determined and calculating look. His entire demeanor shifts as he prepares for what lies ahead. Meanwhile, the girl watches from the gates as silhouettes move within the academy. Inside, Faye observes the other students gathered on the premises. An ornate carriage waits nearby, ready for its departure. Faye walks alone toward the carriage, leaving the other students behind him. He strides purposefully towards the waiting horse-drawn carriage, where a steward and a small maid stop to greet him, bowing as the man addresses him as Faye Bonnet, causing Faye's eyes to twitch at the unfamiliar surname. The man then introduces himself as Trent Mendez, a royal steward, while the small maid stammers, trying to speak, before excitedly blurting out her name as Anna Mendes. So Faye inquires if they are siblings with the same last name. However, Trent clarifies they are siblings but not blood-related, and Anna nervously asks for forgiveness due to her youth. With introductions finished, their carriage begins to move. Inside, Faye muses on why His Majesty would summon an imposter. So Trent explains there is a test to verify his identity at the capital. Faye questions this, so Trent asks if he recalls his previous visit, mentioning that the court mages desired his magical power at that time. Faye's eyes then narrow as he finally understands the situation. The test involves an Arna ore containing his magic, which rejects any other power. Suddenly, Trent apologizes for Anna, who looks extremely flustered, but Faye just rests his head on his hand, saying it's fine. A brief quiet moment then passes between them. Anna recalls a memory of Princess Lettuce asking Faye to perform magic again. As the flashback shows a young Lettuce demanding he call her by name, a flustered young Faye protests, but the princess insists she is allowing it. She then jokingly threatens to have him arrested for disrespect. Lettuce smiles, saying she'll forgive him, and a dejected Faye thanks her. She then eagerly asks him to show her his magic. Faye casts a spell, summoning multiple floating water balls. Princess Lettuce watches the magical display with pure delight. With a confident smirk, the young boy readies his spell. They stand together, surrounded by swirling water and a rainbow. Back in the present, Anna gushes about how beautiful Faye's magic is. Faye smiles, saying it's an honor, as Anna calls out to him. She then clasps her hands together, pleading for him to teach her magic. He nervously explains he can't, as he must leave for the capital. A disappointed Anna quickly asks when he will be back next. Faye promises to return in about 10 days after his spirit contract report. She makes him promise, warning that he'll owe her another favor if he's late. He suggests a court mage would be better, but Anna insists on him. Faye finally agrees, leading Anna to shout for joy. Just then, a uniformed man appears and asks, "So this is where you were?" Anna cheerfully greets the man as her brother, Prince Jillian, shocking Faye. The prince calmly apologizes for his sister causing Faye any trouble. Hiding behind her brother, Anna reminds Faye he will be teaching her magic. Jillian then informs Faye that their father was looking for him before he departed. With great urgency, Anna reminds Faye it's an absolute promise. His words, "Yes, a promise," echo as they part ways. Faye watches them leave with a faint, knowing smile. After some time passes, a carriage is heard rumbling along. An aide announces their destination is now in sight. They arrive at the capital city of the Armand Kingdom. Faye, looking tired, glances at his cheerful attendants in the carriage. He peers out the window, remarking on the capital's lively atmosphere. Crowds gather to watch the impressive royal carriage pass by. The carriage then pulls up to the gates of a grand mansion. An attendant leads Faye and a young maid from the carriage. Inside, Faye nervously enters a room where another boy is already seated. As the maid serves tea to Faye, she suddenly trips. A hand darts out, stopping the teacup from spilling. The attendant catches it just in time, apologizing profusely for the mishap. Faye, taken aback by the quick save, insists that it's all right. The young maid thanks the attendant, her big brother, for his assistance. Suddenly, a voice calls Faye's name as a grand door swings open. The boy on the couch stares in disbelief, tears welling in his eyes. Princess Anna then rushes forward, throwing her arms around a stunned Faye. Foy is completely flustered, while the other boy watches with amusement. Jillian says he'd like to enjoy their reunion, but there's a task first. At his cue, an attendant presents a box containing a glowing Alna ore. The ore suddenly radiates immense power, startling Faye. It begins to glow brighter and brighter, its energy wildly unstable. In a flash, tendrils of light lash out, filling the entire room. Jillian and Anna smile, impressed by the incredible display of power. Sometime later, footsteps echo down a long, ornate hallway. The attendant leads Faye and his maid, showing them to their rooms to rest. Reaching a large set of doors, the attendant gestures for them to enter. As the doors open, both Faye and the attendant are shocked by who is inside. A look of pure apprehension spreads across Faye's face. Standing before them is the Ponette family, staring back coldly. Painful memories of his exile at their hands flash through Faye's mind. Despite the shock, Faye formally greets the head of the family, Alex. Alex scoffs, claiming he doesn't remember the faces of commoners. Faye's brother smugly remarks on his pitiful commoner appearance. Furious, Alex shouts at Faye for his insolent words. Faye simply accepts his commoner status and turns to leave. As the Ponette family walks away, Faye thinks he won't forgive them. His maid looks up with wide, worried eyes, asking if he is okay. Faye puts on a smile, assuring her that there is nothing to worry about. The attendant bows, telling Faye to rest well after the long day. From behind the door, Faye thanks him and says goodnight. He glances back with a smile before entering the room. The large doors then slam shut with a loud thud. Outside, the attendant and maid worry about the hardships Faye has endured. Later that night, Faye sits awake on his bed, unable to sleep. Unable to rest, he gets up and steps out of his room. He looks out a window at the night sky, recalling a similar event. A flashback begins, taking place 8 years prior at the castle. A much younger Faye looks out a window with a surprised expression. He sees a young girl standing alone by a grand fountain. The girl, Princess Anna, shivers in the cold night air. Suddenly, a jacket is draped over her shoulders, startling her. She turns around, shocked to see a young Faye standing right behind her. Young Faye looks flustered, sweating as he faces the princess. Anna, with a tear on her cheek, turns to look at him. He kneels and formally introduces himself as Faye Ponette. After apologizing, she asks why he is wandering around at this hour. He nervously admits he couldn't sleep, as it's his first night in the castle. The princess smiles softly, seeming to understand his feelings. They sit together, and Faye asks what she was doing out here. Anna recalls the repetitive daily routine of endless flattery. She explains that gazing at the night sky makes her worries feel small. Faye smiles, saying he understands that feeling despite their different lives. He thinks about the many nobles who try to curry favor with him. Realizing his struggles, Anna asks if he's always had to deal with that. Faye stammers, looking away shyly from her direct question. He then admits he felt pressure for being called a prodigy. As they sit, Anna asks if there is anything he wants to do. She clarifies, wondering if there's something he desires for himself. Faye thoughtfully repeats her words. He seems to have a sudden realization. Then he smiles and says he wants to meet his family's expectations. Anna stares back at him, completely baffled by his response. Faye seems utterly confused by her silent reaction. Anna looks down sadly, whispering that she understands. Suddenly, she declares her own wish is to walk with the boy she likes. Faye stammers, calling her desire both simple and incredibly difficult. A moment later, the princess shivers from the cold night air. In response, Faye summons a small warm flame in his hands. She moves closer, marveling at the warmth of the magic. He asks if it's her first time seeing magic, and she shyly agrees. Looking excited, Anna then asks what kind of relationship he wants with her. She clarifies what he wants to be to her as they gaze at the stars. Blushing, Faye replies he wants a friendly relationship where he can support her. Anna's expression shifts to one of wide-eyed surprise. Then she laughs, calling him interesting, since no one has said that before. She cheerfully suggests they form a friendly bond, startling Faye. A close-up captures her genuinely joyful and bright smile. Her delighted laughter echoes through the quiet garden. The memory fades, flashing back 8 years to that night. In the present, Faye reflects that while his world changed, he has not. The scene shifts to the present-day princess standing alone by the fountain. From a window inside the castle, Faye watches her from a distance. A quick transition panel cuts through the scene. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to Faye. His heart lurches as he turns around. Princess Anna approaches, saying she knew he would be here. She smiles, glad they can finally talk properly. However, her expression quickly sours into a pout. She shouts that they have 6 years of catching up to do. Faye stammers, explaining he'd just been asked about his time in the forest. Anna asks in shock if he was with the woman who saved him. Flustered, she asks if they were living alone together that entire time. Faye hesitantly confirms it, and Anna turns away steaming. She whirls back, demanding to know his relationship with this woman. Confused, he clarifies that the woman is his mother. Instantly, Anna becomes cheerful, telling him to forget her question. She then adds there are things she wants to discuss, including their promise. Her rapid mood swing leaves Faye utterly bewildered. Anna turns back to him, her expression becoming serious. She tells him that family should be one's greatest ally. Referencing his past trauma, Faye smiles, assuring her that he has people who are family without blood ties. Anna looks concerned, starting to say something in response. Faye quietly wonders how long Rana will consider herself his family. Suddenly, Anna firmly takes his hand in hers. Faye looks at her, completely taken by surprise. She vows to always be his ally and one day become his true family. They stand face to face, Faye utterly baffled by her words. Immediately after, Anna's face flushes bright red. She turns away flustered, shouting that it was nothing. Faye, however, watches her with a determined gaze. He then steps forward, embracing her from behind. Completely shocked, Anna can only stammer his name. He just holds her tightly in his arms. Standing by the fountain, he quietly thanks her. The scene then shifts abruptly. A furious fist slams against a wall. Elsewhere, the Panett family sees with contempt for Faye. The Duke fumes that a peasant is threatening their family's status. Later, Faye wakes up the next morning. He greets Melia, lying in a grand canopy bed. Then he looks to the side of the bed. He realizes with a start how strange it feels that she isn't there. Suddenly, a knock at the door startles Faye. He opens it to find Anna, who greets him good morning. A lavish breakfast of pastries and salad is shown. Later, Faye sits at a table while a butler asks his plans. Anna nervously states he has about 3 hours until his audience. He then asks to leave for a moment, not related to the audience. Faye thoughtfully considers his options. He asks the butler if there's a place to use magic, piquing his interest. Distracted, Anna trips and sends a tea service flying. After his meal, the butler leads him to the second platoon's training room. Faye gratefully tells the butler that this is more than enough space. The butler bows, telling him to take his time. Faye now stands alone in the large empty hall. He closes his eyes and casts. The watching butler is shocked, recognizing it as incantationless magic. As Faye trains, he thinks about his coming battle with Alex. He realizes this fight won't be like his encounter with Plum. A glint of resolve flashes in his eye. He scoffs at the idea of relying on others like Melia, who couldn't control her power. Frustrated, Faye grabs his head and lets out a curse. A voice calls out, and Princess Melia rushes into the room excitedly. Faye asks why she is here, and she nervously claims it's a coincidence. Spotting the training room, she asks if he was practicing magic. He replies he had nothing else to do, piquing her interest. With a bright smile, she enthusiastically asks him to show her. Faye recalls her previous magic outburst and looks hesitant. He then suggests she should be the one to perform magic instead. A look of terror washes over her face, asking if he forgot. Faye states it was only beginner magic, which she should be able to cast. The princess reacts with utter shock at his nonchalant words. Pouting, she puffs her cheeks in silent frustration. She then wails that he's a bully, much to his confusion. Melia angrily storms out of the training hall, leaving him baffled. Faye wonders aloud why she's unable to use her own magic. He reasons that court mages should have taught her better by now. Just then, Anna taps his shoulder, snapping him from his thoughts. She declares it is time to fix his necktie for the audience. Anna insists on helping, worried he'll be unable to do it right. With a slightly strained smile, Faye agrees to let her proceed. They end up in a heap on the floor, tangled as she fumbles with the knot. Faye stands up with a perfectly tied necktie, thanking Anna with a weary smile. Suddenly, Anna remembers she forgot the perfume and dashes away. Faye is left alone, completely stunned by her abrupt exit. Just then, a man apologizes for Anna while adjusting Faye's tie. Anna returns, but the man reveals she brought cooking oil instead of perfume. He then pats her head, telling Faye they will go together. Faye watches their exchange, utterly bewildered by their dynamic. Anna gazes up at the man with pure, sparkly adoration. Faye continues to observe them, a thoughtful expression on his face. A small smile appears as he wonders if they are siblings. The scene shifts, telling of the 5 heroes who once defeated the demon tribe. Additionally, 2 other families provided support and gained ducal status. Yet among these 7 houses, one was a complete anomaly. A king praises the heroes, offering them dukedoms and any reward they desire. The heroes gratefully express their wish for vast territories. However, the king on his throne hesitates before granting their request. This sudden pause leaves the assembled heroes looking surprised and confused. He then addresses the Dilselk family, asking what reward they desire. A woman from the family states she does not want land. She desires only a small house in a forest to live peacefully with her daughter. The king finds her request for a simple life rather interesting. Therefore, only the king and a select few knew the faces of the Dilsuk family. Then 10 years ago, a young girl cries over her mother's coffin. With her mother gone, the daughter inherited the Dilsuk name. While living a lonely life in the forest, she met a young boy. The scene returns to the present, showing Faye with a serious expression. His gaze is sharp and focused. Suddenly, a butler addresses him as. The butler informs him that His Highness is calling for him. Faye looks up, startled by the unexpected summons. With a heavy sound, the large doors creak open. The butler turns and asks if Faye is ready. Nervously, Faye stammers out a quiet agreement. He is announced before the doors, with guards ordering them to enter. The doors swing wide, revealing Faye standing at the threshold. Inside, a grand throne room is filled with kneeling nobles. 3 royals look down from their seats of power. The king on the central throne welcomes him with a smile. Hearing this, Faye's father and brother turn around in utter shock. His mother and sisters also glance back, their faces filled with surprise. Faye's father stares in disbelief, while Faye meets the king's gaze calmly. He stands in the doorway, announced as Faye Panette. His entire family remains kneeling in shock. Smiling, the king notes it's been 6 years and remarks on how Faye has grown. Faye replies respectfully that His Highness hasn't changed at all. His parents break into a cold sweat, unable to dispute the king's false claim. Then the king explains he summoned Faye simply to confirm his identity. He continues, saying they will now discuss the Ponet's judgment and Faye's future. Faye listens anxiously as the king begins to discuss his fate. In a stunning declaration, the king says he will now be known as Faye Dilselk. As Faye stammers his thanks, his father shouts for the king to wait. The king ponders if their punishment involves assassinating a false heir. While the crown usually doesn't interfere, he says this case is different. He declares their actions could be considered treason, stunning the father. The father argues their heir must be strong to defend the nation's borders. The king questions if this family policy has suddenly changed. He then asks how they explain Faye defeating the duke's son, a powerful individual. The king suggests Faye is more suited to the position than Bram. Faye's father furiously objects, claiming Bram only lost due to carelessness. Faye's father fumes about an inferior person threatening the ducal position. The king smirks, asking if he considers himself stronger than the duke's son. His father shouts that Faye could never defeat a powerful spirit mage. A knowing smile spreads across the king's face. He then suggests they settle the matter with a duel. Suddenly, the throne room doors burst open. An elegant woman enters dramatically, surprising everyone. The king chuckles, remarking that her appearance here is quite rare. The woman Lanael smiles serenely at the assembly. She happily runs towards Faye, calling out his name. Lanael embraces a flustered Faye from behind, saying she's recharging. Nearby, the princess looks irritated by the public display. Lanael just winks playfully, continuing to hug the blushing Faye. The king clears his throat and asks Lady Lanael for her purpose. She coyly asks if she came to see her son, perplexing the king. She then pinches Faye's cheek, calling him her cute son, much to his shock. The king realizes her powerful healing magic must be the explanation. Faye's father furiously shouts at the rude woman he doesn't recognize. The king introduces her as Lanael Dilselk, head of a ducal house, shocking the father. Faye simply stares, completely stunned by this astonishing revelation. Faye's father sweats, muttering her name in disbelief. The king then clarifies his duel proposal means exactly what it sounds like. Lanael suggests everyone should see Faye's current power for themselves in a duel. She turns to a flustered Faye, assuring him this is for the best. Across the room, Alex smirks, agreeing to prove his own power again. Faye's expression darkens at his brother's arrogant assumption. The king clears his throat, pondering the duel proposition. Faye simply stands there, still surprised by the situation. Alex, however, maintains his confident and condescending smirk. He states that Faye's old magic was weak and no match for his spirit magic. Faye's expression hardens as he boldly accepts the challenge. With both sides in agreement, the king nods slowly. He considers the duel, but decides it cannot happen right away. The king then announces the duel will take place in 15 days. Faye's eyes narrow with fierce determination. Alex glares back, his own gaze filled with burning intensity.